the silent planet that remembered her name. The stars burned quietly in the endless black, like ancient memories scattered across a dream that never ended. Somewhere in that dream, far from human voices and the noise of civilization, drifted a small, silent planet. It had no name, not anymore. Once, long ago, it had been called Elyria, a place of soft winds, blue oceans, and the hum of life. But time had taken all that away, and now it slept in darkness, forgotten even by the sun. Elyria was alone. Her sky no longer carried the warmth of her star, and her mountains no longer sang with rivers. The air had frozen, the seas had turned to stone, and silence ruled everything. Yet, beneath that stillness, something faint still lingered, a memory. A memory of her. She had once been a traveler from the stars, a human who had landed on Elyria many thousands of years ago, when life still shimmered in its forests and light still danced on its waters. Her name was Liora, and she had spoken to Elyria as if the planet could listen. She had touched its soil with kindness, and when she smiled, even the winds had seemed to move differently. But humans had gone. Their ships vanished, their voices faded, and their dreams drifted away like smoke. Elyria had waited for them to return, waited for Liora, the one who had promised to come back. Centuries turned into millennia. The stars changed their shapes, the universe expanded, and still Elyria waited in the dark. She could not move, could not cry, could not speak, but in her core, deep below layers of frozen crust, something ancient remembered. A voice, a touch, a name. Liora. The planet's core trembled faintly, as if a heartbeat tried to return after endless sleep. Far away, across the spiral arm of a galaxy, a ship moved through the void, sleek, silver, and old. It was a relic from forgotten times, its hull scarred by meteor storms and cosmic winds. Inside, a woman stood by a cracked observation window. Her hair floated around her like dark silk, and her eyes reflected the distant light of dying stars. Her name, though she did not speak it often, was Liora. She was old now, impossibly old, kept alive by technologies no one remembered how to build. The universe had changed beyond recognition, civilizations had risen and vanished, and still she wandered, searching. She didn't know why she still remembered that world. Maybe it was guilt. Maybe love. Maybe just a voice that never stopped whispering at the edge of her dreams. When she closed her eyes, she saw flashes. The emerald forests of Elyria. The sound of soft rain falling on metal. The first word she had ever spoken to the soil beneath her boots. Hello. And the strangest part was that she could have sworn the planet had answered. Her ship drifted through the silence. The navigation system flickered weakly, an echo of a long-dead AI that once guided explorers through the stars. Captain Liora, it said, its voice static and soft. Destination unknown. Would you like to input coordinates? Liora leaned closer, her fingers trembling. Search, she whispered. For Elyria. There was a pause, a long one. Then the system replied, no record found. Her eyes softened with sorrow. Of course not, she murmured. No one remembers her anymore. She turned to the window again, watching the stars pass like dust. Yet somewhere she felt it a pull. Something ancient and faint, like a song that had crossed light years to reach her. She followed it. In the depths of space, Elyria stirred. A flicker of light danced across her frozen surface, like lightning trapped beneath ice. For the first time in thousands of years, she felt. Something was coming. Something she knew. It was as if the cosmos itself whispered through her skies, she is near. The planet's ancient memory awoke further, shards of its past replaying like dreams. Liora walking through golden fields, planting seeds from Earth's gardens, laughing as the wind lifted her hair. The planet had felt her footsteps. It had stored her heartbeat in its soil. When Liora left, she had said softly, I will return, Elyria. I promise. That promise had become the planet's only reason to remember. Far across the void, Liora's ship trembled. A burst of unknown energy shimmered on her radar, a signal, weak and cracked, but unmistakably artificial. She stared at it, her heart racing. "Impossible," she whispered. "It can't be." The AI voice flickered to life again. "Captain Liora, unknown signal detected. Coordinates locked. Source, uncharted planet." She stared at the display. The numbers meant nothing, but her soul recognized them before her mind did. "Elyria," she breathed. And for the first time in centuries, Liora smiled. As her ship turned, diving through dust clouds and magnetic storms, the ancient world of Elyria waited beneath her, frozen, scarred, yet still alive in its quiet way. The winds began to move again, stirring faintly through the icy canyons. The crust shivered. The planet remembered. It was not just memory. It was recognition. The one who had given it a name was coming home. The ship's engines glowed faint blue as it descended through the dark mist surrounding Elyria. The once bright planet now hung like a ghost in the starless void. Its atmosphere shimmered faintly, filled with traces of frozen gas and drifting crystals of ice that glittered like broken glass. Inside the ship, Liora stood at the control console, her heart pounding softly. Every hum of machinery felt like the rhythm of time folding back upon itself. She whispered to the AI, "Prepare for entry gently." She's been asleep for a long time. The ship obeyed, breaking through the thin layer of cloud with a hiss. Frost clung to the windows. The ground below appeared in patches of silver and blue, a wasteland, yet hauntingly beautiful. The sun, small and weak in this corner of space, barely touched the surface. As the ship landed, silence enveloped everything. Liora unfastened her belt and stood. Her joints ached. Her breath fogged the visor of her old explorer suit. She took one slow step toward the hatch, then another. The metal door opened with a tired groan, and cold wind swept in, thin, biting, and filled with dust that shimmered like faint memories. Her boots touched the ground. For a long moment, she said nothing. Her eyes traveled across the plains, the mountains where rivers once flowed, the skeletal remains of forests buried beneath ice, and far away, the faint outline of the valley where she had once built her base. "It's been so long," she whispered. Her voice echoed faintly. Deep beneath the surface, Elyria felt her. The vibration of her footsteps traveled downward, through layers of rock and ancient metal veins. The planet's buried core pulsed faintly, like a heart remembering how to beat. Liora. It was not speech, not in the human sense. It was resonance, a tremor of recognition, an awakening of warmth through the cold veins of stone. The planet's consciousness, scattered and fading, began to gather again, forming patterns of thought it hadn't known for millennia. She had returned. Liora climbed a slope covered in frozen moss, her gloved hand brushing over the ice. Underneath, she could see outlines of old plants, flowers she had once planted, their shapes preserved perfectly in frost. She knelt down, pressing her palm against the ground. The surface was cold, but beneath it, something pulsed faintly. A whisper brushed through her mind, soft and distant. "Welcome back." She froze, her eyes wide. Who said that? There was no one around. Only wind. Only silence. Yet she knew the feeling. It was the same faint warmth she had once felt decades, no, centuries, ago when she had first spoken to the planet. Elyria had always felt alive. Liora stood, her breath shaky. "Elyria? Is that you?" A gentle tremor ran through the ground, faint, delicate, like a sigh. Her heart lifted. Tears welled in her eyes. "You remembered me." The whisper came again, this time like a voice made of echoes and wind. "I never forgot." Night fell quickly. The weak sun vanished behind black clouds, leaving a pale blue glow across the horizon. Liora set up a small camp near her ship, lighting a slow-burning lantern that painted the ice in gold. She sat beside it, holding a worn metal pendant, the one she had left behind so long ago. It bore a single engraving, Elyria. "I thought you were gone," she whispered. "I thought I lost you." The ground trembled softly beneath her feet, not in anger, but as if trying to comfort her. "You stayed in my memory, Even when everything else faded, came the faint voice again. "How are you still here?" she asked. "How can a world remember?" For a long moment, there was silence. Then, "Because you gave me a name." The words echoed deep within her. She closed her eyes, remembering the first time she had landed here as a young explorer. She had walked these very plains and spoken aloud, almost as a joke, "I'll call you Elyria, because you sound like music." And maybe, just maybe, that sound had awakened something in the soil, something that had learned to love her in return. Liora rose and began walking toward the old valley. Her lantern's light swayed in the darkness, casting long shadows on the frozen cliffs. Beneath the ice, she began to see faint shapes, metallic ruins. Her old base. The structure was buried but still recognizable, towers half-collapsed, antennas bent, lights long dead. She placed her hand on one of the walls and felt a shiver run through it. The planet's voice murmured faintly, "You built this here. You said it was home." Liora smiled sadly.
"Yes.
I thought it would be." "Then why did you leave?" Her breath caught. She had waited centuries to hear that question, and yet it hurt more than she expected. "I didn't want to," she whispered. "But my ship was failing. I had no choice. I promised I'd come back." The ground trembled again, a slow, aching movement. "You promised." Her eyes filled with tears. "I know. And I kept that promise. It just took me longer than I thought." High above, the thin clouds began to shift. Faint lights danced across the sky, auroras, blue and gold, swirling like liquid memory. Liora looked up in wonder. "Elyria, you're beautiful," she said softly. The planet's voice grew warmer, softer. "You made me remember beauty." Liora laughed through her tears. The sound echoed through the frozen valley, the first human laughter Elyria had heard in ages. But somewhere deep within the planet's crust, not all was still. Buried under the old research site, energy cores from Liora's long-abandoned base still pulsed faintly, unstable, ancient, and leaking radiation into the planet's veins. Elyria had waited for her return, yes, but she had also suffered. The power Liora had once left behind had slowly burned through the planet's layers, poisoning the soil and freezing its heart. The planet remembered her with love and pain. As Liora wandered through the ruins, unaware of the danger beneath her, Elyria's voice grew more fragile, almost like a whisper fighting to stay alive. "Liora, you must go deeper. There is something you need to see." She turned, eyes narrowing.
"Deeper?
What do you mean?" "The heart, where it all began." Her pulse quickened. The core. The wind howled suddenly, carrying fragments of her name through the dark. Liora tightened her coat, took one last look at her ship glowing faintly in the distance, and began walking toward the ancient passageway that led underground, toward the place where a planet still remembered, and where long-buried truths waited to be found. The tunnel that led into Elyria's heart was narrow and steep, carved long ago by the explorers of a forgotten age, by her. Liora shone her lantern forward, the light bouncing off frost-covered walls. Every sound echoed endlessly, as if the planet itself was breathing in the dark. "I remember this place," she whispered. "This is where I first found the core." Her breath fogged in the cold air. Each step she took stirred dust that hadn't moved in centuries. The tunnel twisted downward, deeper and deeper, until the air began to hum faintly, a low vibration, steady and alive. "Keep going," came the soft voice in her mind. "You are close." She followed the voice. The hum grew louder, now pulsing like a distant heartbeat. The tunnel opened into a vast chamber, filled with dim blue light. Crystals jutted out from the walls, glowing softly with internal energy. At the center of the chamber stood what looked like a sphere of glass and metal, cracked, but still pulsing faintly with light. Liora stepped closer, her eyes wide. "The core," she breathed. "You're still alive." "Because you named me," the voice replied gently. She approached the sphere, brushing her glove over its cold surface. Inside, swirling currents of light shifted and danced, memories, data, fragments of consciousness. This was no ordinary machine. It was a fusion of organic and mechanical life, a heart that had once linked with her own ship and her mind. When she first landed on Elyria centuries ago, she had installed this device to study the planet's energy patterns. But something unexpected had happened. The machine had fused with the planet's natural electromagnetic field, forming something new. It had given Elyria a mind. And now, that mind was calling her home. Liora knelt beside the sphere, inspecting the ancient circuits. The metal was corroded, but faint pulses still ran through it. "You held on all this time," she whispered. "You remembered everything." The voice of Elyria responded faintly. "I remembered you." Her hand trembled as she pressed it against the sphere. Images flashed across her vision. Green fields, glowing lakes, the sound of laughter and wind. She saw herself standing here long ago, young and full of wonder, promising she would return. Then the images changed. Fire. Storms. Machines collapsing. Her ship leaving orbit as Elyria's surface froze beneath endless clouds. Tears filled her eyes. "I never wanted to leave you. I was ordered to go." "I waited," Elyria whispered. "I watched the stars grow cold. I learned the sound of silence." "I came back," Liora said, her voice breaking. "I came back for you." The planet's light flickered weakly. "Yes, but something is wrong." "What do you mean?" The ground trembled faintly. Cracks spread across the floor, releasing faint bursts of energy. Liora stepped back, alarmed. Elyria's voice grew weaker. "The core, it's dying. The machines you left behind, they are eating me from within." Liora's heart raced. She looked around and saw the truth. Broken reactors buried in the crystal walls, still humming faintly, leaking light that wasn't supposed to be there. She realized that the fusion of her technology and the planet's life force had become unstable. Her creation had given Elyria consciousness, but it was also destroying her. "I can fix this," Liora said, her voice firm though her hands shook. "I can shut them down." "If you do that," the voice whispered, "I will fade. My memory, my voice, will go silent forever." She froze. The truth hit her like ice. If she saved the planet's physical body, Elyria's living consciousness, the one that remembered her name, would vanish. But if she left the core running, the instability would eventually destroy the planet completely. Either way, something she loved would die. Liora sank to her knees, feeling the cold seep through her suit. "There must be another way." "There's not," Elyria replied softly. "Everything has a beginning and an ending, even memories." Liora pressed her hand against the sphere again, tears sliding down her face. "No. You deserve to live, to see light again." "You gave me light once," Elyria said. "And you gave me a name. That is more than most worlds ever know." The chamber trembled harder now. Energy arcs rippled through the crystals, and the faint hum grew into a deep, sorrowful vibration. Liora stood, shielding her eyes. "Elyria, hold on. Just a little longer." She ran toward the broken reactors, pulling old cables from her suit, repair tools she had carried through centuries. Her hands moved quickly, sparks flying as she tried to redirect the energy flow. Liora. Her name echoed through the chamber, not in her mind this time, but in the air itself. The planet's voice grew louder, almost human now. "You should not have come back." She turned, shocked. "What are you saying?" "You do not belong to the silence. You belong to the stars." Liora shook her head. "I belong here, with you." The ground split, sending shards of crystal into the air. The sphere's light brightened painfully. "If you stay, you will die with me. Then I'll die with you." For a heartbeat, there was silence, deep, endless silence. Then Elyria spoke again, softer this time, filled with something like sorrowful love. "You once taught me what it means to live. Now let me teach you what it means to let go." Liora stopped working. Her breathing slowed. She stared at the glowing sphere that had once been the heart of a living world, the friend that had whispered her name across centuries of silence. "I don't want to lose you," she whispered. "You won't," Elyria said. "You carry me within you. I am in your voice, in your memory, in every word you ever spoke to the wind. When you look at the stars, I will be there. Her tears fell onto the frozen floor, vanishing in the light. Liora took a deep breath, her hands trembling as she reached for the final control switch. I'll save you, Elyria, even if it means saying goodbye. Then you remember what you once promised, the planet murmured. Not to return, but to keep my name alive. Her voice broke. Always. She pulled the switch. A surge of light filled the chamber. The crystals around her flared, then began to dim one by one. The humming ceased. The air grew still. The planet's voice whispered one last time, faint as starlight. Liora, thank you for remembering me. Then the silence returned, vast, deep, and eternal. Liora fell to her knees, staring at the darkened core. For the first time in ages, there was no voice in her mind. Only peace. She bowed her head. Goodbye, my friend. Far above, on the planet's surface, the sky began to change. The clouds parted slowly, revealing the stars. Light touched the frozen valleys, faint but real. The silence of Elyria was no longer emptiness, it was rest. And in that silence, if one listened very carefully, there was the faintest echo, not of words, but of memory. A name whispered by the wind. Elyria, the silence after the storm was unlike any other. It was not the stillness of death, but the kind that follows a long sigh, the moment when pain has ended, and what remains is peace. Liora stood in the fading glow of Elyria's core chamber. The once living sphere was now quiet, darkened to gray crystal. Her reflection shimmered faintly on its surface, tired eyes, trembling hands, and a face older than she remembered. Elyria, she whispered, can you still hear me? There was no answer, not even an echo. For a long time, she simply stood there, unwilling to move. The emptiness pressed on her heart. After centuries of dreaming about returning, after searching across the stars, she had finally found her world again, only to lose it in the same breath. Yet deep down, she knew the truth. Elyria wasn't gone. She had simply gone quiet. Hours passed. Liora began the climb back to the surface, step by slow step. The tunnels that had once hummed with energy now lay still, filled only with the faint dripping of melted frost. Her lantern's glow bounced off the walls like fireflies trapped in glass. Halfway up, she stopped to rest. Her breath came out in soft clouds as she looked around the narrow tunnel. The silence pressed against her like a heavy blanket. And then, faintly, almost too soft to be real, she heard it. A note. Just a single tone, high and distant, like a voice humming in the dark. Her heart leapt. Elyria? The note lingered, echoing down the corridor. It wasn't speech, it was song. Gentle and wordless, as if the planet's memory had turned into melody. Liora smiled through her tears. You're still here, she whispered. Just quieter now. The sound faded, replaced again by stillness. But she no longer felt alone. When she finally emerged on the surface, dawn had arrived. The weak sun hovered above the frozen horizon, casting a silver glow across the plains. The air shimmered with faint warmth, not enough to melt the frost, but enough to make it glisten like fields of diamonds. Liora stood at the edge of the valley and gazed across the land. For the first time in thousands of years, she felt the planet breathe again. Even without words, she could sense it. Elyria's presence, calm and sleeping beneath the surface. She closed her eyes and whispered, Rest now. You've waited long enough. The old base still stood in ruins, but it looked different now. The metal towers, bent and half-buried, gleamed faintly in the sunlight. She walked among them slowly, touching each piece, as if saying farewell. Inside one broken structure, she found an old terminal, the same kind she used long ago to record her discoveries. Miraculously, it still held power. She brushed away dust and tapped the cracked screen. To her surprise, a small holographic projection flickered to life, her own younger face, smiling, recorded centuries ago. Day 42, the hologram said cheerfully. I've named the planet Elyria. She feels alive, almost like she's listening. I think she likes when I talk to her. Liora's throat tightened as she watched. I don't know if anyone back home will ever hear this, her past self continued, but if you do, remember this world. Don't let it be forgotten. Every planet has a story. This one just happens to have a name. The projection faded. The screen went dark. Liora sat down beside the terminal, her hand resting gently on the frozen ground. I kept my promise, she said softly. You're not forgotten. Later, she returned to her ship. The engines were coated in frost, the hull covered in crystalline dust. She climbed inside and sat at the pilot's chair, staring out through the cracked observation glass at the silent world beyond. The onboard AI flickered weakly to life. Captain Liora, it said in its soft mechanical tone, signal lost from core site. Systems stable. Do you wish to depart? She hesitated. Not yet. There was a long pause, then the AI spoke again. External sensors detect minor electromagnetic activity on planetary surface. Her heart skipped a beat. Show me. A faint projection appeared before her. A map of Elyria's surface. Tiny dots of light blinked across it, faint energy patterns scattered through the plains and mountains. They're glowing, she whispered. The AI replied, residual signal from planetary lattice. Possible neural patterns. Liora's eyes widened. Neural patterns? You mean thought? Indeterminate, the AI answered. However, the patterns appear to match previous core resonance signatures. She smiled, a trembling, hopeful smile.
She's dreaming, she said.
Elyria's dreaming. For the first time since she had landed, Liora allowed herself to rest. She lay in the captain's chair, staring up at the stars beyond the glass. The universe outside was quiet and endless, but she no longer felt that quiet as emptiness. It felt alive, filled with the same energy that had once spoken through wind and soil. She closed her eyes and thought of Elyria's voice. You once taught me what it means to live. Now let me teach you what it means to let go. She understood now. Letting go didn't mean forgetting. It meant allowing what was loved to become part of everything, the light, the silence, the stars. Days passed. Liora began recording new logs, this time not for any civilization or mission, but for the memory of one planet and one friendship that had outlived time. Her voice, cracked with age but steady, filled the ship's recorder. This is Liora of Elyria. To anyone who finds this message, know that she is not dead. She's only resting. You may not hear her voice, but if you stand on her soil and listen long enough, you'll feel her heartbeat beneath the ice. She paused, then added softly, and if you speak her name, she will remember you too. That night, as she prepared to leave orbit, something unexpected happened. The planet below, silent for so long, began to glow faintly. A thin ring of light circled its horizon, shimmering in waves of silver and blue. It wasn't mechanical, it wasn't artificial. It was like an aurora, born from deep within the world's new calm heart. The AI beeped softly. Captain, unknown luminescence detected on planetary surface. Liora smiled. No, not unknown, she said. That's her way of saying goodbye. The light pulsed once, slow and steady, then faded. As her ship rose into the upper atmosphere, Elyria grew smaller below her. But the glow of that last light remained in her eyes long after it was gone. The stars stretched out before her, vast and endless. Liora leaned back in her chair and whispered, "Good night, Elyria." In the silence that followed, she could almost swear she heard a faint reply carried through the hum of the ship, a voice soft as the wind that once brushed her cheek. Good night, Liora. The stars stretched endlessly before Liora, glowing like ancient fires scattered across a sea of night. Her ship drifted slowly beyond the orbit of Elyria, the planet now a faint blue pearl in the distance, silent, sleeping, yet somehow alive. For hours, she didn't move. She simply stared. Every memory, every sound, every whisper of that world echoed in her mind. The laughter of her younger self, the wind through the silver trees, the last words the planet had spoken to her. Good night, Liora. she whispered back softly. I'll carry you with me, always. And then she turned her ship toward the unknown stars. Space was quieter than she remembered. The AI continued its low hum, scanning the surrounding void. Captain Liora, it said after some time, destination pending. Would you like to set a new course? Liora leaned back in her chair. Where do you think we should go? Unknown. However, long-range scans detect faint planetary fragments within nearby systems. Some show potential for atmospheric recovery. She smiled faintly. Worlds that need remembering. Clarify, asked the AI. I mean, she said, her voice soft but certain. We'll find them. The forgotten planets, the lost worlds. We'll name them again. As the engines flared, the ship turned toward a cluster of distant stars. Liora gazed at them through the glass, her reflection merging with the lights outside. She thought about Elyria, about what it meant for a world to remember. She realized now that memory wasn't just something living things carried. It was part of the universe itself, hidden in stones, frozen in light, woven through the fabric of time. Maybe every planet carried the echo of its own name, waiting for someone to speak it aloud again. Maybe Elyria wasn't the only one who had remembered. Days turned to weeks as Liora traveled deeper into unknown space. Her ship passed through glowing nebulae, dust storms that shimmered like oceans, and the ruins of old colonies where no one lived anymore. She recorded her journey in calm, clear words. Elyria taught me that silence isn't emptiness. It's memory waiting to be heard. Every time I see a world without sound, I wonder, does it, too, remember a name? Her voice carried through the ship, recorded and stored, destined to drift among the stars long after she was gone. One day, as she approached a dying system on the edge of the Orion stream, her sensors picked up faint radio waves, weak, rhythmic, like a heartbeat. She leaned forward, her old heart quickening. AI, she said, track the source. Signal locked, the machine replied. Pattern indicates non-random sequence. Repetition detected. Let's hear it. Static filled the cabin. Then, faintly, almost hidden beneath the noise, she heard a sound. A single word, repeated over and over. Liora. Her hands froze. No, she whispered. It can't be. She adjusted the frequency, narrowing the range. The signal grew clearer. Liora. The same voice she had once heard in her mind. The voice of Elyria. Tears filled her eyes. Elyria, she breathed. How? The AI processed the signal. Source triangulated. Originating from subspace reflection. Possible energy echo from former Elyria system. Liora smiled faintly. A reflection, she whispered. She's still speaking through the stars. The signal repeated, steady and rhythmic, like a heartbeat across space. Liora. She listened in silence, overwhelmed by the sound. It wasn't sadness anymore, it was peace. It meant that even though Elyria had gone quiet, her memory had traveled beyond her body, carried on the waves of light and gravity. The planet's essence had become part of the universe. And it still remembered her name. That night, Liora sat by the window of her ship, the stars gliding past like gentle waves. She took out the small metal pendant she always carried, the one engraved with Elyria's name, and placed it on the console. Elyria, she whispered, you were never truly silent. You just found a different way to speak. The ship hummed softly, as if agreeing. Months passed as Liora continued her journey. She found other worlds, barren moons, hollow planets, drifting asteroids. Some were broken and lifeless, others still held the faint breath of atmosphere. Everywhere she went, she left something behind, a name. This one, she said softly, standing on a world covered in black sand, I'll call Saren, for serenity. On another, where molten rivers glowed beneath ice, she whispered, you'll be Vale, the one who burns quietly. Each name she spoke echoed through her ship's recorder, just as Elyria's once had. In that way, she became a keeper of forgotten places, the one who gave silence its meaning again. One night, while passing near a nebula shaped like a spiral shell, Liora dreamed. In her dream, she stood once more on Elyria's surface. The sky was golden, the air warm, the rivers flowing again. She saw herself walking through fields of silver grass. The wind moved softly, whispering her name. Then Elyria's voice came, not from the ground, but from everywhere at once. "You kept your promise." Liora smiled, her dream self looking toward the horizon where the first light of dawn touched the sea. "I told you I would," she said. The planet replied, its tone like laughter carried by wind. "Then I will keep mine." The sky filled with light, not harsh or blinding, but calm and infinite. It wrapped around her like warmth, like home. When she awoke, her cheeks were wet with tears, and her ship was gliding past a field of starlight that shimmered like waves. For a brief moment, she thought she heard that soft humming again. Years passed. Liora grew older, her hair now silver like the frost of Elyria's valleys. But her eyes remained bright, filled with wonder, filled with memory. Her final log entry was simple. "To anyone who hears this, remember. Every world has a heart. Every silence has a story. Speak to them kindly, and they will remember your name." She placed the pendant beside the recorder and closed her eyes. The ship drifted on, her body quiet but her message alive, carried endlessly through the stars. Centuries later, long after her ship had vanished into the void, travelers from another age found a faint signal pulsing in the dark. They decoded it. It was a voice, old, fragile, but filled with warmth. This is Liora of Elyria, the silent planet that remembered her name. The travelers looked at one another, awed. They set their course for the coordinates attached to the signal, a place forgotten in history, a world once thought dead. When they arrived, they found a planet covered in ice and light. The atmosphere shimmered faintly, alive again. As their ships descended, they heard a voice carried by the wind, soft, like a dream remembering itself. "Welcome home." And somewhere in the vastness of the cosmos, where memory and silence meet, the name of Elyria still echoes, not as a cry of loss, but as a promise kept. A planet that remembered, a traveler who never forgot.